Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
Welcome to the scoop, everybody. I am Farah,
And I'm Nicole.
and yeah, I think I already said this is the scoop. We're excited to have you join us today, and today is going to be fun because it's Nicole's experiences at the Autism United of Wisconsin get together conference. What would you call it, Nicole?
Yeah, so they ran a conference. They call it like a staycation for caregivers in the Dells. And so they had families come out and stay at the Dells if they wanted to. And then they ran different sessions across like 2.5 days or so. So different speakers to give families resources on autism and what was available for their children.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So how did you get involved with that?
Yeah, so Melissa sits on the WAPA board, and she had said that she was going to be out of town while they were having this conference, so they invited us to join. So she asked if I wanted to sit on the panel. So it was a panel of myself and three other BCBAs from different organizations that kind of came together and created a presentation for the event.
That's awesome. So that very cool. So, can you just explain a little bit about like how you prepared for that, like how that kind of came about with leading up to that day and then just kind of like your experiences walking into that. How was that?
Yeah, so our presentation was on some myths of ABA and where ABA came from and where it is today. And so we did talk about how sometimes there's like some misconceptions of what ABA is, how we run ABA. And so we talked about things like compliance and how we've evolved from compliance based strategies into person centered care in different areas like that. We talked about trauma informed practices. We talked about just like different avenues. We talked about like caregivers as collaborators and how important it was for caregiver involvement into the treatment that we do. We talked about like the difference between bribery versus reinforcement. So quite a few different topics in there. So the preparation for it was across a couple months where we would get together, the panel and I, and talk about. We each had different like subsections within the presentation that we kind of focused on, and then we presented on our sections. And I really didn't know what to expect. I have not been to this conference before. And so I wasn't exactly sure. So what I found from the conference was actually a lot different than what I was expecting. And some of it was about our presentation and how ABA has a bad name, and then some of it was not about that at
Oh.
all.
So my first question on that part is when you were meeting with the other, I'm assuming BCBAs or right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you were talking about like myths or I don't know, kind of the things that you're describing, did you agree on everything or was there some discussion on like, oh, I don't see it that way or like what came up in those
Mm-hmm.
preparations? I'm curious about that because everybody's a little bit different. So I'm just curious
Mm-hmm.
what came up in those.
Yeah, I think that the myths of ABA are definitely relevant, kind of all over the place, no matter who you talk to, because what kind of happened was that the adults with autism are speaking about their
Mm.
experiences in ABA. And
Okay.
so if you're looking at an adult, you're looking at, okay, that was 21 years ago, or that was, 15 years ago, or that was 40 years ago, or however long. Um, and I do see, I think we all were on the same page of like, yeah, we don't agree that that's how ABA is. However, we do see that how that could be portrayed that way, or how there once was more focus on table centered
Yeah.
programming. And it was more about like, okay, let's learn by sitting in this chair. And we all agreed that this kind of like compliance training that once was is no longer, and very far from it, to the point of people don't really know what ABA is today. So our main focus was like, let's teach what ABA is now. So yes, we addressed a couple of those areas, but our point was really surrounding um, the experiences that individuals have now.
So what was the, I don't want to say youngest, I don't mean like age wise, but like in the fields,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're in the field 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, you're going to have
Mm-hmm.
totally different experiences. I would think, because I've seen it change throughout, the 30 some years I've been in the field. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm curious about that. Do they even know, like, because compliance training and the way that it was 30 years ago, I mean, I can imagine why people thought or feel
Mm-hmm.
or have, because there was stuff that like, I mean, that's what I love about the field is you do something and then you realize like, oh, I think we can do this a little bit differently. This is a little bit too restrictive, or this is a little bit too, fill in the blank. So did you see that kind of people not understanding exactly what happened 30 years ago versus 10
Mm-hmm.
years, 5 years? Because I've seen it even in the last 6 years completely
Mm-hmm.
lots of different things going on. So what would you say about that as far as the panel goes?
Yeah, I mean, the panel was all professionals that have been in the field quite some time, and maybe not like BCBAs the entire time, however, are very successful in the field.
Mhm.
So they were like, we're talking like regional directors, people that ran like college courses, people that sit on like the Wisconsin ABA boards, that sit on WAPA, that have been like very involved, especially in the state,
Oh, that's
with
awesome.
ABA and where ABA has come all these years.
Yeah, because I mean, I would assume everybody started as a tech of some sort because
Yeah.
that's kind of where you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that's good because then you actually did it. You're actually kind of taking it, it was just very different, 30 some years ago because it was all table. And I wonder too, did it ever come up that that was still ever occurring in places or I don't know. I'm just so curious about the language about that because as you know, we've taken over many cases
Mm-hmm.
that I mean, you doesn't even look like ABA or it looks like old ABA. I'll say old. I don't know how else to say it, but
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
like, so I'm just curious about those conversations too, and why some of the myths or just concerns or whatever may be happening still do come up because
Yeah.
it can look so different depending
Mm-hmm.
on each, client and company and person in each company that can even look different. So what's
Yeah.
your thoughts on that too?
We really encouraged caregivers to seek their own information about different providers, because we can't guarantee that this provider is this way and this provider is this way. Um, Even within some of their own organizations, this clinic might be run differently than this clinic, or this school ran differently than this school. So we had some of those conversations too, where it kind of came down to, it's more important to resource the families to ask the questions to find the best fit for them, because We also got into how different providers are and how different ages they service too, and things might look different based on like population that they service alone. Um, or every company kind of has, like, you have a different culture, you have a different idea of how ABA is ran within that environment. And it even might look different from like a clinic environment to a home environment to a community environment as well. Or we talked about a lot about like schools and what that looks like. So that was something that we just encouraged, was ask about these things, ask these very like specific questions, go and see these facilities, like things like that, so they can find the best fit for their family and their child,
I
because
love
not it's not like a one size fits all model either. It's kind of like going,
empowering them.
yeah, it's empowering them. um, it's kind of like going, like, I remember trying to find like a daycare for the kids. And I actually worked at a very large corporation. I ran a daycare center at one point. And I was comfortable with that center, but I wasn't comfortable with centers like even in
Oh.
the same, like with the same company.
Mhm.
Um, and it just, and I just remember kind of like shopping around for like a daycare center. And it's kind of like that with ABA, like kind of shopping
Agree.
around, or like getting the, I'm like a feelings person. Like you have to get the vibe there. So that's kind of what we were empowering them to do.
It's very true because
Yeah.
you look at a public school that has many different buildings and each building
Mm-hmm.
is different. And then also within the building, the teachers are each different
Yes.
because it's people.
Mm-hmm.
It's those relationships and stuff. So I love that. I love the empowering the parents to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
We've had the conversation, I think actually just recently, about families asking questions, and there was an online group chat or something, and I had even jumped in and said, you should ask the questions. Like you
Mm-hmm.
should shop around. You should, there's lots of great providers. There's, individuals within, it just depends on like what you're looking for, and what
Yeah.
you're wanting. And, I can tell us about us. I can encourage you to come and look at the facility and talk to these people. And I also think you should go somewhere else and see, and you got to do it for yourself and what you're looking for, not Joe Schmo or whatever. So I definitely align with that. And you shouldn't have anything to hide, So if somebody's telling you not to do that, I think that's a red flag.
Yeah.
They should be open to questions and seeing and that kind of stuff. It also helps us with our processes and our systems, that if they're being told something else that we're like, wait a minute, then we can also go back and talk to whoever we need to talk to make sure that we're all aligning across different locations too, because we have several locations and that does happen. So
Yeah.
I think that's really important too. So I think that's great. I love the empowerment. So was there anybody else at the conference? I mean, I guess you said there was three or four, right, of you?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you
Yeah.
said? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And was all three or four of you different as far as like what you service and like what that looks like? Was there, or was it all pretty, like what did that kind of look like? Like I know we are unique with the spectrum that we,
Yeah.
service. What were the other ones like, and what questions came from that too, from caregivers?
We were all very different. We all kind of had our niche like areas that we serviced. And we all had different experiences or different resources to bring to the table for the caregivers.
Okay.
So Appear and I did a Q&A during breakfast. So what the families, it was called Breakfast with Professionals. And so the families could come and eat, and they could sit down with the different professionals and ask questions.
Okay.
And so we did get quite a few questions from families. A lot, actually, more so about the age of their children, because I had one family say, I don't know why I'm talking to you because my son is already 13 and can't get ABA. And I was
Oh,
like, oh, whoa, hold on. Like, yeah, actually, like you can. But that was not as well known as I thought it would be, especially for a more populated area such as like Madison, like those kind of areas. It was interesting that families, I feel like, had more of a, oh, I can't get ABA past like age 5, age 7, which also led into conversations about schools, and having to stop services before school aged, but then wondering, well, my kid still needs help though, so like what am I supposed to do? That
mm.
opened up a lot of conversation.
Which again, for us is probably kind of surprising because
Mm-hmm.
of what we do.
Yeah.
Um, and takes me back 20 years ago. Like I'm literally feel like I'm back, like, oh, we got to be done at this time. Oh, we're, the split shifts or the weekends therapy or whatever. And, we haven't done that for so long. I think that's why it's not shocking, wouldn't be the word. I don't think I'm ever shocked, but just surprised maybe a little bit to hear that families don't know that. But at the same time, the companies, that's what they most specialize in is before school age because like it's a business, right?
Yep.
That's where you support yourself. That's where you have the income come in, and that the early intervention and all of the stuff that's been
Mm-hmm.
researched for so many years. Because I mean, you're the first to say it. The least researched and the least funded and supported is the older kids,
Yep.
adults, teenagers, that kind of stuff. Um, so I think that's interesting, and that's something to make sure that we're talking about. Again,
Mm-hmm.
what we do is there's money and funding and things for all ages. It's limited at certain. I mean, I guess what did you say to them about that as far as the funding? Did you guys talk about funding and what kind of was
Yeah.
known, not known? And I'm assuming they were very surprised for the people that
Yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah. They were very surprised that we we are an organization that does service and actually primarily services individuals older than 6.
Yeah.
Most of our population, I'd say 70% or more, is over the age of 6. Because when we got accredited, even they were a little like, oh wow, like you have a lot of older kids, and that is true. Um, Families still need those support. So it was really great to work with other professionals too, because they kind of brought a cause for us to make sure that we are a resource to families, because there's not a lot of us out there. And by us, I mean providers that service past age 6 or 7 or 9 even. Um,
Yeah.
and what that looks like. I think also our school model is something to consider as well, because there was a lot of like, okay, well, what does, now my child is of school age, they're in school, like what should I be looking for, and why won't the school allow ABA services embedded into the school system? And we talked a lot about that, because there are reasons for that, and there are laws about that. um, so that was a huge topic. Like a lot of parents during our presentation were asking questions specifically related to IEPs in schools and ABA.
Yeah. I mean, that goes back to a lot of our conversations, I think in prior podcasts. I can't remember what we've talked about
Yeah.
on air. but about the school and why the school was developed and how that's, evolved over time.
Mhm.
And why we keep coming back to like the same model, even though we kind of go away, they come back and,
Mhm.
of what that looks like because it is so needed. And people are, there's lots of barriers, as we know.
Yeah. It all
So,
comes down to funding. Like everything that we do comes down to funding. And um, if you have the resources to fight, and maybe not even having the resources to fight, but like the drive to maybe,
yeah,
because it is always a fight. And it takes a certain person to be able to do that because it's hard and it's frustrating. Because I did talk to another peer at the conference that was on the panel with me, and she was like, yeah, there is the reason that people don't take past a certain age is because of funding 100%. And that also gives ABA a bad name because then it becomes about money. um, when that's not actually true. There really is no money in this field, but it becomes like that becomes a topic of that when it's about like, oh, if I can't service this kid for 33 hours a week and not have to fight insurance, meaning that they're under 6 years old,
yeah,
then that's golden. That's how most companies do thrive. And that's how most companies are able to pay their employees more. So like this particular organization does that. So
right.
the reason past a certain age is so that they can stay afloat, basically.
I get that. I think we get that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's tough is that I mean, that's where I always try to think about business aligning with clinical because that's what's important. And so you do need, I don't know. That's very interesting because I get that. And I know that's why corporations and small, big, and whatever, um, that is how you stay afloat and that's how you pay your staff more because it's a cutthroat industry, as we know, and there's lots of poaching, I guess I would say. People trying to take staff and do those different things. That's just a reality that is constantly happening. Because it is, I mean, we can go into a whole bunch of stuff about that, with how BCBAs are, what's happening now with BCBAs and RBTs and things like that in the field and how it's a lot, to get in and get through school and pass your boards and then like all the stuff that's kind of changing with that too, that's going to make it harder. Um, now and in the future. So then you put in what you're talking about with funding and fighting for 10 hours for this particular 15-hour, I don't know exactly everything I think you've seen it all in school or a day program or whatever, right? Whatever, but when they're in school, it is a totally different thing. I know you guys fight a lot with for those kids. And it has to be more than about the money. And I think that's hard because it is a big fight. I mean, we've had so many conversations about this with multiple people about how like, aren't you nervous? And you're like, this is all we've ever done. We're the ones that are constantly fighting for all the other kids that are school aged and adults because nobody else, not nobody, but very few will put the fight in to get the services that they need, right? And we're still doing this. We're still figuring it out. Um, so yeah, I think that's interesting. Was it interesting for you to sit on a board like that and kind of go back and go, yeah, that's why people do this? And I don't know. Or were you not? I don't know. Like, how did that feel sitting with that? Because I think we're very unique, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Is there anybody else that does what we do? Because everybody's always to
I
fight.
think, yeah, there's that populations or do there's a lot they're just not embedded in ABA practices.
Okay.
Very important for me because I wanted to make sure that we had of ABA. Um, so I think that that was me to kind of keep. Um, and it is surprising people are to find services because services are limited for that age. Realize like how much
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to do more, and it makes like service like more and more the only ones because that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
This level of like quality um, service such a large people because you also need to take care like the right environment and the right setup and all of those things. Like you had asked like if I was surprised by some of the
Oh yeah.
feedback that was given or what people were talking about at the conference, and I I'm not surprised. Um However, of course, I'm like, okay, how can we service more and how can we do more and how can we, because it does put a lot of pressure on you as
Yeah.
one of the only, we're not the only, I know that. However, it's still a lot of pressure because you're like, oh my gosh, all of these like kids and young adults like need our care. And
Right.
we've been so successful with so many people that it's like I know that we can do it, like I know we have really great teams, and that's really what it takes is the team. And
Yeah.
if you don't have the team, it doesn't matter if you can take individuals up to age whatever 60 or to infinity, like it won't matter if you don't have the right people who are equally driven and have a
Right.
passion like for this. And that's what it's all about. And I think that we have that, and that like sets us apart. However, you have to make sure that you have to balance like the need with like the burnout, because that's the reality of this is
Yeah.
just like parent and caregiver burnout, there's also like this like staff burnout, and you need to balance that, meaning that you can't have like 10 very high needs adults at once, because
Yeah.
then that doesn't work, although you really just want to help everybody. So it's just really hard because I want to help, like listening to these caregivers struggle is just like, oh, like I personally know what that's like with my own daughter, and it's like gut wrenching, like
Yeah.
you just want to be a parent and you don't want to be a therapist. But you have to because there's not resources like for
Mhm.
them. So it's hard.
Mm. That's a really good point. When I think about that. And I think that's been mm, something to really come to terms with yourself, like yourself, as far as you actually are counterproductive when you try to help everybody. You have to really
Yeah.
be specific to what you can actually give quality services to that the staff and our teams can actually take. Otherwise, you do. I mean, you lose lots of staff, and it's already a field that, regardless, if you do everything, to the best of your ability, you're still going to have burnout. You're still going to have, because you're working and you're communicating and with people. They're not robots. They're not just a piece of machinery. So it is definitely different. You have your own kind of stuff going on day to day because you're a person. So I think that's the thing that you give yourself grace for in this field of like, what can we actually do and what is going to have the biggest impact on each individual that comes to us, families. I mean, I think that's get back to that too with the caregivers, as it is, having your own kids, each of us have our own kids and our own kind of things that come with our families and our individual children. that you really can understand, like, it's a thing, it's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard to come home, especially after being at work and then coming home to your own family that has its own needs and your own individual stuff. So that's definitely a thing. So yeah, so I think that's something we continue to learn and give each other grace with, like, what can we actually do and
Yeah.
not be counterproductive. So
Mhm.
I bet you that was a big kind of cool, eye-opening, not really too at times, of like just a reminder of caregivers and what they go through and what
Mhm.
creating that space of like real conversations about what's really happening, right? With the caregivers and the
Yeah.
frustrations. Because I bet you that was very enlightening, and I don't know what the word would be, to listen to them. So, what
Mhm.
were their big things that they would say to you that impacted and left a lasting impact on you as a provider, and that they talked about in ABA besides what
Yeah.
you just said?
One of my biggest things, and it's why I took this topic on, was because I really want caregiver involvement to include more like ACT based instruction.
Oh,
And the reason I say that is because I think diving into values are so important. And I really wanted to bring that to the table in this conference. I really wanted to acknowledge that if the caregiver doesn't care about it, then like what are we doing? And oftentimes, like as caregivers, as parents, we consider our children first. And I think what's really missing is considering ourselves. Because if we're not okay, how can we be okay for our children or
right.
for anybody else? And I think that's just such a big part of caregiver collaboration that's missing. Um, and so when I went over that, I had this, and I did post it on LinkedIn, but I had this visual that kind of went through how you get burnt out when you're not structured in your values and the things that are important to you, not important for you to do with your child, but important to you as like a human being. Um, and that those two things look very different. And how do you reduce stress to be a better version of yourself, like for your kids? And I just saw a lot of like kind of like head nods with that, like which was really reassuring for me. And I talked to a parent afterwards, and I said, she was advocating for some different needs for her daughter. And I was like, you know what? Like you're a powerhouse. Like you keep advocating, like you know what you're doing, you know what's best, like keep pushing forward and doing that. And I think that we need more people like her that like are not afraid to ask the hard questions, to advocate, to like drive people forward and take those along with her to do so. Um, I think that part is so important, especially when when we're a field based on insurance. A lot of the times, it does take the parents to advocate just as much as we do, or more.
Yeah, touche. That's very, very, very true. And if you don't have, I mean, like, honestly, back in, this is the thing that I'm very grateful for, my history back in the day, because it was all parent advocating for their kids, and it was kids, little kids, and it was all parent led, honestly. And they hired their own people. It was before funding. And there was I'm very grateful for that time period, because you had to. Everybody had to have a piece of the pie and actually lead you. And it was Yeah, there was stuff about ABA that was very different, but at the same time, if the parents weren't comfortable, most of the time they would say, I'm not comfortable with this. This is what I want. And this is what I want you to do. And you worked hand in hand with them. Um, so it was different because they didn't there wasn't funding when I started. So it was just very, very different. And just like anything, when you are given free money, that changes things. Um, when you're not, however, there's limitations of both, of course. But when parents, are their child's own advocate and aren't afraid to have that voice, it does change everything. Because what I think and what you think could be very different as far as what's important to you. And I always
Mhm.
say that. I'm always like, okay, so you don't really care about this? Then why are we doing it? Because you're the one that's taking I'm only here temporarily. You're here for how, it's the rest of your life that you're alive. And what are we going to do with this? So I think that's always my favorite part. I know that's not everybody's favorite part, but that's what I always have loved about this field is when you have those relationships with the parents and it's just simply it's really the simple question of, is this working for you? And how do you see this? What do you want out of this? Because that's really the beginning and the end of it. What do you want? What are you going to do? Because if you don't care, it's not going anywhere. So it doesn't matter
Mhm.
that this child can do this or any, client can do this with just this person or just me. Because at the end of the day, I'm walking away at some point, right? So
Mhm.
so I think that's the key right there. I think it's always been the key, are the families and the buy-in and what they're going to do or not do. Um,
Yeah.
and that's very interesting too. What parents, I mean, and as a parent though, Nicole, you can see that. Like when I walk in at night or after work or whatever, and I'm with my kids, what's the thing that irritates me the most, that I struggle with the most? That I'm
Mhm.
burnt out on the most. That could be very different than what we as clinicians do, right? That can look very different potentially. So I think
Mhm.
that's the key and why I loved hearing about all of this. And even when we talked before about the families, because that's it. Who showed up there and who talked about it. I would love more and more of that because that's how you're going to get
Mhm.
through. When the funding was in jeopardy, the many times it has been, who's the people that got it to say or more or changed it? The parents. It's always the caregivers, always. They went and marched in Madison, and boy, did they
Yep.
show up. If that was just us, you
Mhm.
think that that would have happened? No. So I
No.
think, yep. So I think
Yeah.
that's our big, huge goal as, right, is to keep getting
Mhm.
people involved. We can do a better job at that. We can hold
Mhm.
meetings or, that's what kind of us moving forward. That's like one of our big goals is to get parents more involved. And,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, the state is going to have a like parent advocacy group um where they're going to select some parents from different ABA agencies to sit on this panel where they will meet. I don't know how often, but they would participate in some of these like advocacy projects together, which I think is a really great opportunity. So if any of our families are like interested, I would highly encourage that. Um,
Yes.
so
Um, so is that the invitation? So who would they
that's the
contact? Would they
invitation.
contact you or Melissa?
Yeah, they can contact me or they can contact Melissa. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Advocacy groups. Is
so we
there a
would love
name?
that.
Is there a name for the advocacy groups? Is it just through United Way, the Autism
No,
United?
it's
No,
through WAPA's hosting it.
WAPA.
So there's Melissa would know more and for more detailed information, but they are going to kind of see. Right now, they're seeing who's interested from these different organizations, and then they'll select like one family from each organization in the area to sit on this advocacy like panel, board, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, that makes sense. Um, all right. Well, that's awesome. I mean, I think that's a great for families to reach out. That's one thing that's a big goal for us in this next bit here is to really get to advocate. We want, more funding and different things. We have some things that we'll talk more about with the initiative that we're creating as we speak, because that will be a big area of interest for hopefully families, because that's going to be a big deal, and that's our hope. So yeah. So I think, is there anything else, Nicole, that you wanted to say about your experience there, or will you be involved in the future then? Or is this going to be a yearly thing? What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I would love to be involved more and more, speak at other conferences about services and different topics. I have a lot of like passions that I would love to speak more about. So I'm definitely open. It was a very good experience. I hope that the rest of the panel and myself continue to do this. So we'll see.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. Just keep the communication moving and keep the conversations moving, and we can follow up on some of this too. Maybe there's some opportunities for families to, I don't know what the HIPAA stuff is, but to come on and advocate maybe in a podcast or have some families come on from, I don't know, to talk about this kind of things and what their struggles are and what their goals are. Because I think that would be great too, is just to hear right from. I mean, we've done a little bit of that with Marie as a parent and Devin and things like that. But I don't think we can do enough of that because that's how we keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. Okay. Well, thanks, Nicole, for talking about your experience and kind of, I think it's great because I didn't know about this conference. So I think that's wonderful to get that name out there. And maybe next year when they hold this again,
Mhm.
we can talk more about that, but we can get the word out there that this is there and it's for caregivers to be a part of that and give a voice to them. Right.
Yes. Mhm.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's it. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.